Finally, the moment a couple of you have been waiting for.
It's all like bing bong, Jack.
Coming to you from an undisclosed location in Duval and St. Johns County. The show for Jag fans by Jag fans.
You can't have a newcomer come in and steal the show.
Here are your hosts, Franklin and Michael how you say it? DeZoba. Welcome to the JagOrNot podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, guess who's back? Back again. Right? Two white guys talking football. Specifically, the crappy Jags. We've been away for a little while. I had to coach my brother back into it. He, like most of us, went into the land of despair and just said that really a podcast about the Jaguars isn't worth doing. I tend to agree a little bit with him. I understand why he felt that way. However, recently talking to some people over the holidays, there are actually people who listen to this. So we're going to keep trying to do it. Keep trying to put our little voices out there, our little opinions. If you like us, go ahead, hit the subscribe, hit the like, leave a comment. We'll reply. We can talk in the comments. So we do go back and watch it. We do try to look at the channel, at least the podcast, for a few days to see if anybody's replied or not. So with that being said, what we got lined up for you tonight is we're essentially going to try to cover how the Jacksonville Jaguars ended up as a dramatic shit show. I don't know if you guys know, but the Twitterverse has gone crazy this week with the clown emojis. Once it was said that we are keeping our current GM, Trent Baalke. Newsflash, Shad Khan, nobody likes this dude. There's a reason why coaches don't like him. There's a reason why everywhere he's gone has been just filled with strife between coach and GM. The dude is bad. We need to get out. We need to get him out of there. We need to get rid of the entire front office because to me, it's all tainted. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to my brother. I'll chime in here and there when I have my opinions. But we are going to try to dive into exactly how we have become this major clusterfuck. So please bear with us. Here we go. Frank, take it away.
Yeah, so just the concept of this sort of came to me as I'm thinking about the constant, it's been a long time, well over, it's like a decade and a half of just straight nonsense. And it feels like we never get out of it. And why is that? What makes this franchise so different than every other franchise? Like, what is it that we're doing wrong? And, the point about Baalke, it looks like we're destined to not have learned a lesson and to continue this strategy of not making the right decisions in a long line of not making the right decisions. And so I thought it might make sense to start back into this by just explaining how we got to where we are now, or at least how I think we've got to this point. What I wanted to do is, if you asked anybody who's a longtime Jaguar fan, what the worst loss was for us, a franchise defining loss, I think almost everybody would say it would be the 99 playoff loss to the Titans, in which we went 14-2. And the only losses we had were 3 losses to that team. And believe it or not, I think that our issue stems starting with that loss. And I'm going to lay this out. I think, and I think others do agree as well, that 99 squad was extremely talented. The record says it was talented. I think it was more talented roster than that Titans team was. I think the stats also kind of show that too, if you look at those games. In other words, we played the Titans very well. The point being is this, that what most fans came away with when we lost those 3 games in that season was Jeff Fisher outcoached Tom Coughlin. that left a very nasty taste in the Jaguar fan mouth. And so, and again, if you want to stop me anytime, Mike, feel free to, do that. When that 99 season happened, you licked your wounds and you went back to what you were supposed to be doing. And after that, Coughlin attempted to get back to that glory, to take another shot at it. And he did that by making and signing free agents. He basically destroyed the salary cap. So at some point you had to pay the piper on that. And a couple years later, lo and behold, you're putting Baselli on the, I forget what they call that,
which I think was the right move. They allowed him to be tagged by the Texans, who was a franchise team at the time.
And I think that next year, so that was that off season. And I think that next offseason, Coughlin was fired, if I'm not
it's right around the same time frame. But ultimately, I think that was the demise of Coughlin here in Jacksonville. And I obviously, based off his record in New York, it's possible we got rid of him just a little bit too early, that he was building his foundation. Had we kept him, we probably would not have been a laughing stock as quickly or for as long as we have been. But nonetheless, Coughlin would have already been out of here. But I do agree that I can definitely see that 99 season losing to the same team 3 times, your only losses. We were there at that playoff game. Man, if I could have killed Samari Roll before he walked into that stadium, I would have. Because I mean, that's just conjecture. It's not accurate. The dude played
language, right?
Yeah, the dude played well, but as a frustrated Jags fan, I blame him. I blame Samari Roll. But yeah, so I agree. That's exactly where I think it started to spiral out of control. And you're right. I do know that I had worked with a woman who worked in the accounting department of the Jaguars early on. And she said that Wayne Weaver gave basically Tom Coughlin one edict: win and win at all costs. So he was fine with blowing the money, the salary cap. He was fine doing whatever Tom Coughlin and the GM at the time wanted to do, because he gave him that edict to win. He wanted to establish a winning culture quickly here to build a fan base, because he felt, and as we're seeing now, had we had more winning seasons, had we had more regimes that actually did something, the fan base wouldn't be turning its back on them as quick as it is. And I don't think we are. I just think from an outside perspective, they see people not showing up. They see us putting clown emojis on, and they're saying, oh, the fan base hates the team. No, the fan base cares, and we care a lot. And that's why we do these things. Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to go to a Jags game, even Jags fans. So I'm pretty sure Jags players don't want to go to a Jags game. And that's pretty pathetic.
The last game certainly appeared that way.
Yeah, I mean, nobody really showed up.
Yeah, so that whole thing with exactly what you said, and so Wayne Weaver gave him carte blanche to do that. I can understand the theory. You basically throw the kitchen sink at everything. You look at this in terms of windows. I mean, you hear this all the time. We have a window. The window's open. We need to take advantage of it. I certainly understand that, but at a certain point, you began to realize that the window had closed, and then you are having to pay that credit card off. So what happened was Coughlin got 1 year to rebuild, and it didn't happen in 1 year. And that offseason, we booted him. At the time, and I'll be honest, I wasn't a fan of Coughlin at the time, but I disagreed with getting rid of him so early. Even at the time, I thought it was a bad decision, and I thought it was a decision that was made in haste by Wayne Weaver. And in looking back, I think it's because the fan base, Coughlin had that reputation of being as much of a non-tyrant coach,
a tyrant,
and the fan base didn't support him. And That led to
Personally,
that.
I was one of the ones who was wrong. I wanted Coughlin gone.
Yeah, and I was against it, but I wasn't. But I understood it. I mean, I understood it. It wasn't like, oh, this is. I knew, like I knew at a time it was a terrible position. But that decision, looking back, has led us down a domino series of decisions. And so what ended up happening after that was this: it opened up for Del Rio to be hired, and Del Rio was the hot new candidate. If you remember him, he was the defensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers came in the same time we did. He was this energetic guy. And to be fair to Del Rio, I think Del Rio was a pretty good coach looking back. The problem that I see is what ended up happening was when Wayne Weaver hired Del Rio, that was the year that the Rooney Rule was being emphasized, or not emphasized, it was being bantered about. In fact, I think that next year it was put into effect, or maybe that off season, but right right after Del Rio was hired. So if memory serves, and I looked this up just to be sure, I don't believe we interviewed a black head coach. And so to me, it was interesting that we ended up hiring Shaq Harris in fairness, he was qualified. So I'm not saying it was, but it's just interesting. We ran out to hire this white coach.
What are you saying, Franklin?
Well, I'm saying, I'm just saying that it's an interesting thing that the Rooney Rule was being bannered about. And so maybe we rushed to judgment with Shaq Harris. But looking back now, we've made another.
Right. I mean, but hindsight's 2020. You just said the guy was qualified.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
all you can do is pick from the qualified individuals and roll the dice and hope that you get a good guy.
Yeah.
The problem is that Shaq Harris was not the GM we needed.
No, he wasn't, but it's funny because it got even worse from there, if you can believe that. And so then, what ended up happening was you start down this cycle where you get Shaq and Shaq, and very first thing Shaq does, he gets Byron. And this is a bad decision right out the gate. And we're looking back, it's hindsight. I was against the hiring of Leftwich, and here's why. It had nothing to do with
the drafting. You mean the draft?
Yeah,
we didn't hire him. We drafted him. Yeah.
Sure.
He didn't really have a say. He could have said, yeah, I'm not playing for you, but we drafted him. So let's call it. Yeah.
And to be fair, I'm not against hiring. I wouldn't be against hiring Leftwich as a coach right now. I might like other candidates instead, but if they hired Leftwich, I'd understand that too as coach. But so this has nothing to do with Leftwich as a person. But if you remember when we got Leftwich, we still had Burnell on our team and we just drafted Garrard. And that's, to me, a similar thing that we just did in this draft, where we've got James Robinson and we think we've got this luxury to go ahead and use a first round draft pick on Travis Etienne. So we didn't, to me, and then here's what ended up happening because of that. Because we got Leftwich instead of the next draft, you got your quarterback now. He's our guy, right? Meanwhile, you usher Burnell out. I would probably argue a year or two too early.
I'm not sure of that, man. There was a preseason game against the Giants where the guy took out Burnell's knee. And then after that, Burnell was never the same quarterback. So
in that offseason?
No, it was almost.
Oh, you're talking about before,
it was like 2 years beforehand before we actually got rid of him. But he was just never the same quarterback after that.
Okay, and that's fair. But then, so the point is that Shaq couldn't resist drafting Leftwich. And then what ended up happening was the very next draft, because you got your quarterback, they drafted Reggie Williams because this is not a first round wide receiver. Ben Roethlisberger goes two picks later. Then the next year, you got to have another weapon for your prime quarterback. We draft Matt Jones. And
Woo!
Guess who goes three
Matt
picks
Jones,
later?
Boy.
Guess who goes 3 picks later? Was it 3 picks later? Let me see. Anyway, that was the year that Aaron Rodgers was drafted.
Right. So what you're saying, had we not jumped the gun on Leftwich, we would have been able to either get Roethlisberger or Aaron Rodgers one of those following years.
Right.
And
Right.
in return, we could have already had the weapons in place and then brought in the quarterback instead of bringing in the quarterback and then trying to get the weapons.
Yeah. And what ended up happening was we realized that Leftwich wasn't the man. In fact, the quarterback that was on the roster already ended up beating Leftwich soundly. And so all of that wasted draft capital or wasted opportunity was for nothing, because we ended up basically getting rid of Leftwich anyway. And we ended up riding with Garrard, who was already on the team at the time that Shaq Harris got here. So then we got the illustrious Gene Smith in place for
that
Shaq.
dude was dynamite.
So these bad draft decisions that Shaq made, I guess, pushed him out the door. And so what we ended up getting instead was Gene Smith. And at the time, I thought Gene Smith must have been better than Shaq, because why would Wayne Weaver elevate this guy to that position? And then he does what Gene Smith does. And this is a guy that he passed on Russell Wilson for a punter.
Oh yeah, no, Gene Smith was dog shit awful. I mean, I don't care who you name that he drafted. If I throw out, what was it, Brian Anger?
Yeah.
Right. He's a weapon, right? That's what they tried to tell us. A punter in the third round is a weapon. If I'm an owner and I hear that out of my GM, you're coming to my office. Step into my office, because you're fucking fired.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, I don't know if we need to rehash the Gene Smith era, but literally we had no talent. And what talent we did have, they love to ship off 2 or 3 years early.
And remember too that before this happened, this was the year after the Tebow draft. And my thought on Tebow was, we suck at drafting, obviously. We have a pattern of not making the correct decisions. Why not sell tickets? That was my thought. So I was for drafting Tebow, and we got.
And I'm in the opposite camp. And if you're going to draft a quarterback, you try to draft the best quarterback you can. Well, if that meant Leftwich, then that meant Leftwich. We can argue we did it 2 years too early or a year too early. We can argue that, and that's a fair argument. But Leftwich was a much better quarterback than Tim Tebow. I understand that the circumstances were different. However, if you legitimately want people to come to your game continuously, you have to draft good players. You have to win. The problem we're having now is the fact that under Khan, outside of 2017, we haven't won anything. We've been straight dog shit, garbage, crap. And to me, the problem with Khan is he likes to keep people in-house for continuity. Brother, continuity isn't working. Continuity isn't working. Get them all out. Get rid of the stink. Get rid of the disease. Get rid of the cancer. Get a whole fresh thing in there. There's your continuity. It's fresh. Nobody has that stigmatism attached to them. They can start over fresh. There's your continuity. Roll with that. And if that doesn't work, get them all out again and repeat the process until you get somebody that works.
I think that's a great point. And the fact is, and I get Khan's situation first when he first got here, but he's been an owner.
Yeah, enough. I'm not cutting him any slack.
Yeah, no, now there's no slack. Now there's no slack.
All right. So I'm sorry. I jumped in on your Gene Smith stuff and I hijacked it.
And that's the thing. So Gene Smith, and here's the other thing that I think the Tebow thing was 2 years before we chose Brian Anger, the weapon, over Russell Wilson. And the reason that's important is because It wasn't that we didn't draft Tebow. Forget that. That's fine. Obviously, that's you draft talent, and he wasn't talent. So maybe they're right in that respect. But then the next year was the Blaine Gabbert draft. And if you remember, I was adamantly against Blaine Gabbert, which is neither here nor there. The point is we don't get paid to know, they do. And he sucked.
What was funny about Blaine Gabbert is that I didn't know. I'm not a huge college guy. I don't watch a lot of college football. But when they start talking about the guys who are potential first round draft picks, I typically start to pay attention to them. I had no damn idea who Blaine Gabbert was. Yeah, and all I saw were highlights. And from his highlights, I thought the guy could throw a ball, and he could. I didn't know. I didn't know he was lacking in some other areas that you need for quarterbacking, but I thought he could throw a ball. So
Yeah, no.
I wasn't necessarily anti it. I knew we needed somebody in there. You know,
here's the thing that bothered me, because Del Rio and Gene Smith came out. You know how they always have to talk up their draft
their
picks
picks,
to
right?
explain to us why they're actually great draft picks, even though other people think they're terrible. And they did this with Tyson Alualu the year before when we didn't draft Tebow. They had to explain how Tyson Alualu is just this great pick. Well, they came out the next draft when they drafted Gabbert, and they told us how now this is a pro quarterback, as if that's a shot over the bow to all those
All the fans, yeah.
all the rubes who wanted Tebow. You college football idiots out there don't understand this. Now this guy, he's a pro quarterback, and so this makes the Russell Wilson thing make sense a little bit, because they hated Tebow so much and had to justify, now here's a good quarterback. They grabbed Gabbert, and then here we are again. Russell Wilson is in the next draft, and we draft a punter. Well, we don't need quarterback. We've got Blaine Gabbert. And so you see this pattern that is materialized.
It's starting to emerge.
Yeah, where we're always drafting the quarterback and reaching, by the way, to do it, and trading up to do it. And we could have just waited. We could have got our guy, sat back and got our guy. And the point is that they didn't know what they were doing. So then all that stuff blows up. Khan realizes these guys suck. And so then he goes out and he gets Caldwell. And he does, in a way, it's fair. He blows up the system, I guess. He goes out and he gets Caldwell. And then Caldwell comes in, and this guy doesn't know what the heck he's doing either. And I said that from the start, because we sat in the stands and I watched this team, and I said, this team's offensive line is atrocious. Their defensive line, pedestrian. And he didn't focus on any of that stuff. So here's a guy, Khan, sitting here. He's waiting. He doesn't know what to do because he's wanting to feel the NFL out. Caldwell comes in, and he doesn't know what to do. And he's not waiting at all. He doesn't come in and look at the team. He doesn't seem to know what the team needs. He just knows he drafted he hired Gus Bradley. And so he's going to go out and replace the secondary to match what Gus Bradley did in Seattle. And so a long line of all these situations. And then so Caldwell brings us Bortles. The Gabbert experiment's over. So we go and we get Bortles now to come in. And these two sucked so bad, they had to they finally got rid of Bradley. Marone's in the building at the time. They suck so bad, they have to bring Tom Coughlin back, the guy who was ran out to start this whole process. Then the 2017 season happens, and we think, okay, they figured it out. And then that all blows up. And then Tom Coughlin is again ushered out of the building as the scapegoat. And that's basically where we are now at this point. They've gotten, so then that leads us to the Urban Meyer experiment.
Right.
Which blew up again.
I never even thought Urban Meyer was a choice until I heard him. Once I heard him, I was like, okay, give him a go.
Yeah. Well, he
Uh,
talked a good game. He's a used car salesman. He's a politician. He does what those type of people do. Those slimy.
I'm sure he'll probably be president. Although I don't know how
He
they
should
how
be.
they,
He'll fit right up. He'll fit right in. He should be the
yeah,
president of the United States. That's what he.
I think so. Yeah,
That's
he
what he
sounds
is.
just about as good as the other ones.
He's got it.
Yeah.
He seems to have as good of
So,
morals. He seems
quick
to
question.
be. Yeah.
Why would you not fire Balky?
Oh, there's
what's
no
the
reason.
advantage?
There's no
What's the
reason not to
advantage?
fire Balky. There's no reason. You
So
fire
you're
Balky.
siding with the fans. You believe that the fans are actually doing right. Because it seems like, I can look at it and I can say, oh, well, the fans are acting out a little bit when it comes to the clown emoji. But I can also tell you that really they're pissed off. They're mad because nobody wants Balky. Nobody wants Balky.
They better, the organization better be glad right now that the fans are acting out, because the next step, and a lot of fans are already here, is apathy, where we just don't.
We're
give
not
a
doing
crap.
Yep. We're
And
not
that's
doing
where
nothing.
they're approaching. This is the last gasp for the fans. They've seen this happen time and time again. And this isn't even anything like, forget Trent Baalke's resume, which is terrible. There's nothing great redeeming about it. If there were, maybe you could have a different conversation about it. It doesn't mean that Trent Baalke won't be good this year drafting. Okay, I'm not foretelling his ability to draft this. I'm not saying you could keep him and say maybe they'll be good next year. The problem is that there's nothing in his resume that makes you think that it can overcome where the franchise is. So that really doesn't even have anything to do with Baalke. It's more or less, this guy is not going to help. There's nothing about him that makes you think he can rescue the franchise that you've got right now. That's what you need. You need a fresh start. He does not provide that. If I'm owner, I would say to Baalke, look, this is not personal. If in a different situation, I might give you another year to round out what vision whatever it was you thought you were going to do. I might give you another year or two to round that out and see where it takes us. But with everything that has happened, I would basically have it's not me, or it's not you, it's me conversation.
I would just fire his ass.
Yeah,
I'd be like, look, dude.
But I'm saying
thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, he doesn't need to be here. There's no reason to keep this guy.
So let me ask you, do you believe Khan really has a legit desire to win?
I think Khan looks at this as so when you invest in something, you invest in, let's say you're an outside investor, you invest in a corporation, you're hoping that the CEO of that corporation knows how to make those widgets right. I don't think he understands the NFL even still. And I think that what he wants to do is he wants to avoid doing things rashly. He's probably, here's the thing. He comes from an engineering background. So this is a guy who thinks mechanically, and they don't make rash decisions. I think in this situation, though, he needs to look at it a bit differently, because you're in a scenario where you've been there and you've done that. You've tried this. At a certain point, if you're an engineer and you keep doing the math and the bridge keeps collapsing, scrap that design and move to a new one. If that illustration makes sense. At
Sort of. It sort of
you
makes
have
sense.
to do that.
Yeah.
There's something fundamentally wrong. It isn't just tweaks. We don't need tweaks anymore. From an engineering standpoint, no more tweaks. We have to go back to the drawing board with this. We just have to. Even from a business standpoint, the fan base is important. And that standpoint alone, and this is why I argued about Tebow. That standpoint alone is what you're doing. People could say it's about winning. Okay, it is about win. Everybody wants to win, but it's really about It's really about a successful franchise. I mean,
Yeah,
you
it's
can
about
get,
putting the product on the field. You don't have to have a necessarily kick-ass, uh, you know, product, but your product has to be able to put on a good show. And we're to the point to where basically we don't even put on a good show. I mean, we die good. I mean, if I had to say it, we're the gladiator that they bring out just to have the good gladiators kill them, sort of to get the crowd pumped up. We're like the reverse of a hype man.
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know exactly how to explain that, but
We are the Washington Generals, and the rest of the league are the Harlem Globetrotters. In a league
yeah,
that pushes for parity,
for parody, right?
and makes it to where the Generals are supposed to compete. Imagine that as an investment. It's like they're making it, they're setting the rules for you to at least be competitive, and you're failing at every moment. You can't keep people like that in charge. I mean, that's just
Well, they won't take
basic.
they won't force him to sell the team. And there's nothing the NFL can do at this point.
No,
I mean,
and I don't care if he sells the team. But he has to start making right decisions. Up until this point, I haven't blamed him that much. It's like he's running a team. He wants to run a team different than Jerry Jones. He doesn't want to be the guy that he knows bumpers, right? He's not coming in to tell everybody football. He's a Pakistani. He doesn't know football. So I understand that and I appreciate that part. But there also has to be common sense involved too. And this guy, Balky, in my opinion, what maybe has happened is Balky has been the leak. There's rumors about that because he did that in San Francisco. Well, he's probably leaked to Shad Khan too. He was probably the little spy that was telling on Urban, which is fine. And so Khan probably feels some loyalty about that, which is fine too. Again, that's why it goes back to this. Look, Balky, it's not you, it's me. I appreciate everything you've done, and in a different set of circumstances, I would give you another year at least to see where you're going to take this. But things blew up in a way nobody could foresee. And you have to understand that. And at a certain point, it's like, look, I'm going to tell everybody I can, you're a great dude. And nobody's going to look at this and think that this was your fault or think that you were the problem. Everybody knows who the problem was. And so it's just, we got to make a clean break for everybody's sake.
And I agree. I think we clean the entire house, get the entire stink out of there, wipe it down with bleach, bring in a priest, do an exorcism. I mean, anything at this point we can do.
It does seem spiritual. It does seem like
I would, because it's like the curse of Coughlin.
Yeah.
So I would do anything to just get this stink off this franchise. But it looks like we're keeping Balky. Can we win with Balky?
No, because here's why. What you just said. No matter who you name a coach right now that will come in and change the stink with Balky here. And again, it has nothing to do with Balky, but what it means that you're not willing to make in a drastic situation, there has to be a drastic response. If you were unable to ever do that, that's as bad as always making drastic responses. You can't blow up every year. You can't be that owner either, but you can't be the opposite where you never respond. You have to respond. And
well, hey, remember I told you about what's his name, George Warhol, our offensive line coach. Man, they loved him. And I'm like, why didn't they just bring in a whole new staff? But no, and then our offensive line isn't all that good. I wonder why. It wasn't good last year, but we kept the players, we kept the coach, and guess what? We got the exact same result. Not
and
a
you don't
very
need
good
to know
offensive line.
football. You don't need to know football as from Khan's perspective to know that did not work. Like, I can understand that you think it might work. If a football guy tells you, oh, I can win with these guys. Okay, maybe he can win with those guys, but you just saw it didn't work. It has never worked. That's the problem.
And that's why I want them to clean house. As long as they keep Balky, I'm going to keep my money in my pocket. I think I'm done with Jaguar merchandise for a little while. I'm done. Yeah, I'll still watch the games.
If they keep Balky, I just going over to your place and hanging out. If it wasn't for that, honestly, I wouldn't be watching the games anymore. I mean, it's just it's to that point where I'm not what do you a masochist? I'm not into that. I don't want to injure myself every Sunday by investing in this trash, and everybody else is feeling on the spectrum heading that direction. I've done this before with this team. When I watched Leonard Fournette attempt to get into the end zone 4 times and get stopped, it was something within me. I'm watching the game, and I thought, they're going to hand this to Derrick Henry, and he's going to run 99 yards. Watch. And it happened. And they show that every offseason, it feels like. And they should, as he just throws Jaguar players. I mean, this is our franchise. And stuff like that happens. It's fine. Like, I get it. But at a certain point, you have to stop it. This is Khan's investment, and he has to understand. He says he's invested in the city. That's the other thing. Oh, I love Jacksonville, blah, blah, blah. Do you? Because you don't treat somebody you love like this.
Right.
It's just and I get that I don't get it. I don't get it. Yeah. I'm trying not to be too emotional about it, but it seems like such an open and shut case to me. And I get the fans. I absolutely get the fans.
And that's what bothers me. Show up Sunday if you're going, if you actually bought tickets. I read on my little feed that you can get tickets for $20. I think that's still too rich for my blood. But if you're going, put on your clown wig, put on your red nose, do it up. Show up. Yeah, show up. Just let them know how much we hate that decision, because I think we got to scrap it all. I think we scrap it all and start over. It didn't work. All right, so.
Yeah, and I can't imagine what this offseason is going to be like with Balky. Imagine how difficult it is for any
coach.
I don't care coach, how. Yeah, you're making it difficult on your coach. You're making it difficult on Balky. How's he supposed to make make decisions that aren't just torn apart? It doesn't matter what he does. He can make the best decision, and we will never notice that. We won't. And it won't be his fault necessarily. That's what I'm getting to. It has nothing to do with Balky. Balky is in a no-win situation here. And you can't put him in that situation. The whole thing's got to go. Everything. Hiroshima.
Well,
it's got to go.
Well, we will see. I vote for Hiroshima as well. Go ahead and light it up. Hell, Colin, let me know if you have trouble. I'll let him know. I'll tell Balky he's fired. I don't have any problem with that. I'm like, pack your shit and get out. You suck.
The fans have told him this already. It should be easy for him.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
It should be easy.
We've already made the decision for you, Con. It's easy.
Yeah, listen to us. Listen to us. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. That is our show. I think we were trying to keep it a little short. I think we ran over maybe 10 to 15 minutes from what we want. Frank, we got to work on that, brother.
It's a lot of venting that needs to take place. If they can do some winning, then maybe it'll just be about us talking about how great they are, and it'll be like 20 minutes.
Yeah. Stop giving us content. All right. Well, I think that's our show for the night. So thank you for joining us. So bye, guys. Do just whatever.